All right. Well, welcome everybody. Ed, good to see you. Today is March 18th. We're getting ever closer to getting rubber on some soil here and getting the planters out in fields, and we're getting to the point where the Discovery Farm is just a month away. Ed, 2 months away. What are your plans right now?
Yeah, well, good morning, Andrew. It's good to sit here and visit with you again, especially about our Discovery Farm. And we're probably a little more than a month away from planting, maybe 6 weeks for us here. Last week of April, let's say April 25 is our target date, where we're at here in Minnesota to get started. Sometimes some years can go a little before that. A lot of years or last few years been kind of after that. But it's time of the year to be getting anxious to get going, I guess. And so we've been taking on this Discovery Farm has added another level of intrigue to our research program here to understand how we can incorporate regenerative agriculture more solidly in our yield trial program, hybrid development program. And so that's probably the largest purpose of it. But I would say the reason behind us deciding to rent another 150 acres, more or less, to do regenerative agriculture on is to take a quarter of land that's been farmed conventionally, half soybeans, half corn, and rotated every year. That's the history of the field. The unique part about this farm is it was no-tilled for 2 years prior to us renting it. And so we are starting with 2 years of no-till under our belt on this farm, which is kind of unusual in Renville County where we're at, because we're very much into tillage because we do a multitude of crops here, from sugar beets to canning crops to the traditional corn and soybean rotation. So we have a lot of options that are grown in this particular area. But so as you well know, you kind of pushed us into the regenerative agriculture with your first meeting going to the Nexus at Green Cover a year ago. And since then, I think we've both been drinking from a fire hose trying to understand regenerative agriculture and what that means. And from my side on doing the research, we've been working for regenerative agriculture for 20 years and didn't realize that's what it was going to be in the end. It was just native uh, genes, that are found in corn working to uh, resist biotic and abiotic stresses naturally in the corn that we developed, and that was the thrust of it. And our quest to find answers as to why the plants were behaving the way they were led us to regenerative agriculture and how the corn plants themselves are actually interacting with the soil microbiome. And so since that wonderful meeting and getting to know the good folks at Green Cover, we've been uh, trying to soak up as much information we can of all the people that have done a lot of work before us. And one of the biggest questions I have is how do we tie all this information together to get it into let's say, a script or a prescription of some kind for a farmer to jump into it? Because the biggest fear is I'm comfortable with the way I've been doing things. My farm is profitable, or at least I'm secure in the way I'm operating my business, and you're asking me to make a radical change. And so I think for us, the idea behind the Discovery Farm is to take a brand new farm and go at it 100% and see how it goes. We're going to track every cost and apply that to, regenerative farming and conventional farming, look at our yields, analyze techniques on what we need to do. And our goal is to update everybody along the way. Each step of our journey, you're going to know the good, the bad, and the ugly as we go. And with the ultimate goal of being able to say, okay, here is how we would recommend you go from your conventional agriculture to regenerative agriculture. These are the steps that you have to take that we believe you're going to have a 99% probability of making more money than what you are currently doing what you're doing. You know, the, we talk a lot in regenerative agriculture about context, and I get everybody's farm is different. And that's everywhere across the world. But everywhere across the world where we've traveled and worked is everybody still has soil, and the health varies on that soil based on their farming practices.
Right.
You all need rain, we got sunshine, or we have irrigation, but the concept is the same. The soils are growing medium. We have to select the seeds we're going to plant, and then we have methodologies and how we grow their crop and harvest it. And our job is to find the commonalities that we think will work across, let's say 80% of what we can get a farmer to 80% of what they need to do, maybe 90% of what they need to do to jump into regenerative agriculture. And the last, 10 to 20%, you have to kind of adapt for the local
Sure.
conditions or context of what they're working in. Because we have farmers that are in full tillage and are going to have to figure out how to reduce tillage. And that'll be an extra step for them, or to go to no-till. If we have no-till farmers, they can jump right in there. And how do we do that? And then we have farms that are, let's say, more tropical to very northern climates like we are here, or even further north of us here in Minnesota, that have a much shorter growing season. But we're trying to look for what we can do across all these farms that is the same, and start with that as our baseline, and then figure out what the tweaks are.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, I mean, everyone has all of the basic building blocks of what's going on. But then, like you said, that 10 to 20% is more contextual based off of what's going on their farm. So based off of that and the context within the Discovery Farm there in Renville County, and we're going to be doing some work with some skip rows, some 60s, and some different things with some cover crop. Recently, you sat down with some of the folks at Green Cover to go over what blend, what mix, what was the thought behind what the selection was for the cover crop, and what did we end up settling on or choosing for the mix that we're putting in there?
Okay, so the first step that we're taking is, from everybody that I've talked to, the information that we've read, is that diversity is key for when you're doing cover crops. Just trying to plant cereal rye or cereal rye plus hairy vetch or something. I mean, that's a great start, don't get me wrong. But if we truly want to take advantage of the power of regenerative agriculture and speed it along fast on our farms when people make the switch, because I don't want to have that lull in productivity. We want this to kick into overdrive right away on a farmer's fields. And so we're doing a 9-way mix for our initial start, and we're going to interseed into our corn, because with our short season here, or growing season in Minnesota, I can't wait till after the corn crop to plant, and I don't want to wait till my the cereal rye that I planted last fall that I can terminate and plant in June. That doesn't give me enough season. And so we decided we're going to interseed the covers, and then we went ahead and chose mostly cool season crops, because they'll get established early and help us with weed control. And then they'll probably go into stasis during the growing season. And then as the corn crop we're growing senesces, they should take off again. So we have a good cover base after harvest. And my intention then is, after we harvest, is go ahead and plant cereal rye again, so that we just keep attacking that ground for having live roots all the time. Last fall when I planted the cereal rye, I've been out there checking now a couple different times this spring, and I didn't plant it till the 16th of October in 2024, and we needed a rain that didn't show up till maybe the last week of October to get it germinated, because we were so dry up here. So it basically started growing 1st of November. And we were fortunate enough to have the super killing frost show up in December. So we got almost a month's growth out of it in November, which isn't a lot of growth, but we had emergence, and we got up to about 3 inches tall with the cereal rye. Not thick and bushy, but we had it there. So I thought, wow, it doesn't look like we were very successful. But this spring I went out and I started digging up the plants, and we had probably 6 times more root mass below the soil surface than we did above the material. The dead leafy material, the green material that we would
Sure.
have had last fall was almost 6 to 1 what we had for root mass. So that was really exciting. And now it was starting to green up when I was out here last Friday. And I'll take some more pictures of it here again when I go out this week and kind of give everybody an idea of what we're looking at. Because the idea is to kind of keep doing some posts on what the farm looks like as we go along.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, when
So,
I was out there at the end of the year, it
but
was yeah, it was maybe that tall above the ground, and I'm glad that you put a shovel
yep.
into the ground and took a look at what was going on below the surface. Because that that's one of the most important things. Especially, let's see, last week I drove from Nebraska into the Illinois Indiana border and along the highway through Iowa and in Illinois. I saw three, maybe four fields that, as things are starting to green up a little bit down here, that had some cover crop in it. And then we see a couple days ago across the middle of the country with the high winds and just brown clouds, going all over the place, where it is just the topsoil leaving the farm and heading somewhere else. And some of that can be a lot of that can be prevented by having some roots in the ground and making sure all that soil stays put. So it's
Yes, definitely. And so on the home farm where we live, where our research nursery is at, and my cousin farms to the south of us, and we both put in cereal rye last fall for cover. And during what you're talking about, those winds we've had the last couple of weeks, I have not seen any soil flying across those fields, but you can see it on the neighbors' fields where they're in, let's say, a more aggressive tillage situation, be it they had sugar beets or something else on those farms, and you're just watching the soil just roll off those farms versus where we had these covers where we're actually gaining some soil because it's capturing what's flying, in the air. So that we'll take the win. So, but no, so we're really excited about this, trying to figure it out. And I mean, uh, we're really going in undiscovered country for us with planting into cereal rye and planting into just no-till corn and soybean stubble on our discovery farms, where I have three different situations we're going to be working in simultaneously to take look at how the genetics perform differently. So we know already, I mean, from our past history, that working in corn on corn and corn on soybeans gives us different results. We've planted into cereal rye before. We understand that it gives us different results and how we manage it, but we're going to have all three right on the same farm now. So it'll be really fun to look at it. And we're not only looking at um, we're just going to use this one mix across the farm right now. I think there's other studies we can do where we can look at maybe what's the most beneficial mix for as a cover crop in our situation of interseeding, because we're going to interseed about V2, V3 is my goal right now on this farm. I don't want to wait any longer. I want to get this started. We'll probably end up doing some herbicide trials as well with cover crops to see what establishes with different herbicide treatments, because I know we're going to get those questions. We've ordered an in roll Dawn uh, crimper to go out there for our cereal rye, and that'll allow us to actually go between the rows to crimp too upon emergence. So if I don't get a good crimp, which I'm expecting I will not, I'm hoping I can go between the rows, like instead of cultivating, we'll be crimping again between the corn rows. That's the idea. And of course, we do have a sprayer as a backup in case we have to go out there and chemically kill.
right.
But the long-term goals for me on the Discovery Farm are to drive out synthetic inputs as we can and understand what steps we have to take to be able to drive out the chemistry, and quite frankly, I think herbicides will probably be the last thing we drive off the farm because of weed control. And that's always the number one question. Even if when you go with non-GMO corn, people, how are you ever going to control the weeds without glyphosate? Well, I've never had the easy button with glyphosate with doing the work that we've done. And so I don't know any different. So it's not a challenge for me. But I can understand where it is for other growers that like having the the glyphosate for grass escapes, which with cereal rye, it's a good way to terminate the crop. But we believe that glyphosate does enough damage to our microbiome in our plants and in our soil. So we're going to avoid that at all costs if we can, the glyphosate application. And so we have a plan going in, and it's like as Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you take that first hit to the face or punch in the face. And I know we're going to take one this spring. I just don't know when and what it looks like, but hopefully we're ready for it.
I
Yeah.
talk to a lot of guys, and that's one of the concerns. Whether they're going from a GMO variety to one of ours, about herbicide programs, or if they're in cover crops. What are some recommendations on different blends on what they have going on for their burn down? In some situations it's unavoidable, but when I look at it, it's probably the easiest part of the conversion from someone going from the GMO crop to one of our varieties to go to the Bass hybrids unconventional, is that it really is. It's the easiest thing to switch over, besides the seed, is the
Yeah.
herbicide program.
General glyphosate has been moved more to an insurance policy than it is an actual mainstay of the weed program, because so many weeds now have increased their tolerance to a glyphosate application. And
Exactly.
so the other herbicides most agronomists are recommending you put on with your glyphosate application, it's easy just to skip the glyphosate and you're going to be just fine. It's just that comfort level of having used it for 30 years, applying to a crop. Yep, the easy button, big time. And not having that security blanket. But quite frankly, with the growers that I've talked to over the years that are converting, their conventional acres generally tend to be cleaner than their Roundup acres because they pay more attention to their, non-GMO acres to start with. But in the end, it's about timing, and we have to do our job on time,
Yeah.
doing weed control, and that's the number one key.
Yeah, and
So
more times than not, start clean, stay clean, and have a better field all year.
yeah, and that's the other part of with the Discovery Farm is I don't know what we're getting into on this farm. I know there were areas where there were weeds because we had drowned out spots. And then there are areas that were nice and clean. I didn't see any weeds as I planted the cereal rye cover on about half of it last fall. So we're going to be able to see what happens with can we suppress the weeds with the cover crop we planted last fall? Can we suppress the weeds that might be there with what we're planting between the rows? I mean, these are the things that we're going to document going along. We're work, what it didn't work, what the weaknesses are, what the strengths, and so then that we can adjust this going into the next year. So this Discovery Farm isn't a 1 year deal. It's a multi-year look at how do we put together a total encompassing farming program that uh, creates the ability for the farmer to say no to synthetic inputs, so they can keep more cash in their pocket. That's our goal.
As we're going from a traditional like monocrop environment to then having these cover crops that are going to be mixed in with what we have going on, and increasing the amount of mass that's going to be under the surface, by comparison, and increasing the highway for the biology that's going on underneath the ground. Um, you'd have to imagine that there are going to be some hybrids that will respond a little bit differently to what that communication is, or the rhizophagy cycle, or any of this stuff that is happening. What is your expectation in terms of what activity that you're going to see within the hybrids?
So, as I stated earlier, we're going to do all our new hybrid development in this situation, in this location, multiple reps. We're going to be working in just the standard 30-inch rows with the cover crops planted in between. We're also going to be doing all of our uh, testing of our more advanced material um, in skip row work. We're going to plant two 30-inch rows, skip 60 inches, plant two 30-inch rows, and put covers between. And I fully expect we're going to see different hybrids respond. we've seen that anecdotally, let's say,
Yeah.
in the past couple of years with customers, and now we're going to actually put the power of replicated research to it and identify those hybrids that work in these conditions so that and we're going to also study at what population as well. So a lot of times we do the skip row work, the growers are compensated by the rows that they removed, adding those seeds to the rows that they're planting, or do like a double row 8 inches apart and a 60-inch with the 60-inch gap, but like a double 8-inch row or something like that, and diamond spacing with the seeds. We're just going to remove 1/3 of our seed as part of this. So we want to really maximize the amount of flex out of the seed that we have planted. But I mean, we're going to do the population work too. Our
Sure.
plant research centers allow us to compensate at what rate we plant, given what position we are in the field. We just mapped all that in. So we'll be able to look at what happens if we plant, the full number of seeds in the 2 rows out of the 3, or maybe half the amount of seed that would be in that row we take out, we put that in, and then of course we're just going to remove the 1/3 of seed. I'm not a very good seed salesman when I'm researching how to plant less seed for our grower.
Right.
But the idea is that we want to maximize the profit for the grower, and that's our job, and that we'll win our way on more acres by being more concerned about the grower's bottom line. And the other thing, though, and maybe this is a little bit where we get into the self-serving part, is that especially if you're a livestock farmer and you want to be grazing your cover crops with this skip row, you can just move everything over 45 inches and plant corn into your cover that you had from the year before. So you can just be rotating without not planting corn on that farm. It's because we believe with this multi-species cover crop, we are creating an environment that the pests are not going to build up that would normally attack a corn on corn rotation. And quite frankly, this is a rotation if we just move those 2 rows over where it was blank and back and forth.
Sure.
So that'll be one of the most intriguing concepts that we're testing over time is how does that work? And so we're going to be monitoring, we'll have our baseline biology on this farm, our baseline fertility. We've taken soil samples already. We'll be taking some more. We're going to be doing nitrogen rate studies as well, and to see how efficient the corn becomes with cover crops or not, and what rate of nitrogen we can recommend for when we're in these systems. And so that's our goal. Can we get away without putting on any nitrogen? Can we have the soil biology produce enough for us? Do the corn hybrids farm the biology well enough? These are all exciting questions to get answered. But the bottom line is when we get done with the season, we can say, okay, we have 1 year's of data pointing in this direction. And with our customers that are going to be maybe more inclined to take some risk on some acres, they can do it with, let's say, our blessing. Maybe we won't promise anything, but this is what we've seen, and then they can help us build the data set to make more recommendations to other people. I mean, we do this as a ongoing relationship with our customers. We'll give them some ideas on what we believe the genetics can do and some methodologies. And if they can provide us the information back, we can make a much bigger and more robust data set going forward for all our customers, with a higher level of confidence,
Sure. Yeah.
telling them what they can do.
Now, some of the things that are happening or going to happen in Minnesota are you've also started to do some of that, or some level of that going on in Puerto Rico as well.
Yeah. So, as some of the people watching us know, is we have the farm in Puerto Rico, and I've decided to make that whole farm regenerative down there, and so that's about 500 acres of land that we can crop year round, and I just need to put a cover on that soil. For 9 months out of the year, some of those soils don't have a crop growing on them, because we're set up to do work specifically in the winter time for our client base, because that's a contract research business. And so that's been the standard that everybody operates on the island. And been watching our soils degrade. I've watched our pest pressure continue to get worse, our productivity go down. And so we have to make radical changes. So I've made the commitment on that 500 acres. It's going to become regenerative. And we'll be tracking that story as well at the same time. And so some of the posts we've had already, I started playing around with little barley because that's what I had available and planted it. I wouldn't call it successful, but I wouldn't call it a failure because we've been learning something. Just recently, I planted some more last February barley in that farm, right where I had it the previous time, just no-tilled right into it. It was really dry, and planted it deep enough so it'd take a good rain for it to germinate and continue on. If I planted it at shallow, we could get just enough rain for it to germinate and die because moisture wouldn't meet moisture. And so with that, we've got a nice stand of barley coming now. There'll be some photos coming out on that. We just shipped a few pallets of cover crop seed I think about an 8-way mix out of green cover to our farm in Puerto Rico now that we'll start planting here. And we should be able to cover the whole farm with something to keep it green. We're producing some seed of some tropical species that we want to include in our cover crop mix in the future. So we have to increase and maintain those seeds ourselves. And of course, since we do seed work, we're set up to be able to do that. But it's exciting. So we're going to be chronicling both farms, and we call the one in Minnesota Discovery Farm, but the one in Puerto Rico is going to be doing basically the same work just in the tropics. And that kind of takes us back to the beginning where we started. We're still dealing with soil. We're still dealing with soil microbes, soil health, crops that we got to grow, sunlight. How do we capture as much sunlight as possible?
Right.
And I think with the cover crops, that's how we maximize our sunlight to create the glucose we need in the soil to feed our microbiology that we have. And of course, with having that, I really believe having that covering on the farm with residue is critical, especially in the tropics, but up here too in the north, we got to have that cover to let's say moderate the soil temperature so that we keep our microbes healthy, and thus then our crops will be healthy.
So 150 acres, corn, half corn, half bean, roughly. Different studies on nitrogen rates, biology, more, I don't like this phrase for it, but more conventional style of farming on some of that ground. I feel like the part of the business is co-opted the word conventional, but we're going to get a lot of data. We're going to be a good source of truth for a lot of people for what they're looking at, if they're looking at making a change or some sort of a shift in what they have going on. What do you think your biggest takeaway from the Discovery Farm in this first year will be?
I try to keep an open mind as to what we're going to see. I mean, we have to observe. I mean, there's things that like when you put together a hypothesis when you're doing research work, and you want to either prove it or disprove it. And so our hypothesis, let's say, is that cover crops will improve our yield, and we're going to have to prove or disprove that, and we're going to have various ways of measuring that. And so and measuring the profitability, because like I said, it comes down to profit for our customer, us as well. I mean, this is no small endeavor, and we want to make our farm profitable for us too, even while we're doing all this research work on it. We want it to pay for itself. And so we're motivated to be efficient and watch our expenses as well.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, the one that I'm excited on, is the different things that we're doing in the different sections of the farm is to really find what our ROI is in some of those sections to find out where what we're putting in and what we're getting out of it and how it all pencils out, because I think that we can show that there's definitely profits to be made. We're going to get to a point where the reduction of inputs in certain areas of it are going to as reduction goes up, or as we're reducing inputs, that our profit will get to a certain point, and then we'll level out and we'll show that the system works. It's scalable for sure. There are people all over this country that are operating in a minimal input system and making good money. The most important yield monitor is the bank account at the end of the month, at the end of the year. So that's one thing that we can help show some people, I believe.
Yeah, and like I said, we're going to be very transparent about what it is, what it costs us to grow these different acres and try and predict what these hybrids would do. And again, back to the goals is to show that while you're transitioning to regenerative agriculture, you can increase your yields and your profitability at the same time, and do that with confidence. I think if when I sit back, that's ultimately the goal of this farm. And we're going to look at a lot of different methods on how to make that happen. So,
And then hopefully we can get to a point where we have the framework, the blueprint of how to operate and be able to share that information with anybody, and to go through a step by step process and how to go from one system to another. Because for a long time, a lot of people out there are operating underneath a very, very particular type of system for farming. And there's other ways that people can go about it and be very profitable doing it.
yeah, and it's all about the steps on how to get there. Yeah, it just so that we're very secure in making recommendations, that we have we know that they have a high probability of working in almost all situations. I mean, that's the framework we want to put together for growers.
Well, the nice thing is that we have a lot of folks that we work with that are operating in different parts of what we have going on. Some of them are pedal to the metal and full on. Other guys are doing part of it, and so I think there's some people that we'll be able to lean on a little bit if we need some guidance. But also I know in my conversations over the past couple months that people are really excited and looking forward to what we're going to have going on there, and we'll be looking at it as a beacon, if you will, to help them in their journey and what they have going on.
Well, exactly, and we do have for our seed corn customers a program they call Building the Future, and that might be where we're looking at new hybrids and geographies that we didn't have replicated trials in, and we'll sell them some seed at a reduced cost, in return for the data. Or we may want them to apply less nitrogen on certain hybrids and then full nitrogen and sell them seed for less cost on that. I mean, and I think that's a great program for help us to understand real life scenarios. We see the trends on our replicated research work, and we can go really confidently to the farmer and say, try this. And this is a way we can encourage it, is through our Building the Future program, where we understand and we're willing to share that data with all our customers across the board, as long as a grower is willing to take a little bit of time to send us the information from the combine, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I love the Building the Future program because it really does offer us an opportunity to take a look at a wide array of information and data that's coming across from the previous year, and we're essentially doing a giant Building the Future program at the Discovery Farm on our own, and it's super exciting to me. And I look forward to the next couple times that I'm going to be up there to walk it and take a look at what's going on, and throughout the year, just to different testing that we're going to be operating with, just the different systems that are going to be going in the ground there. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, and we're going to have at least one field day. Maybe we'll have a couple, depending upon what we're seeing and how excited we get. But for right now, I'd say the end of August, we're planning on a field day to bring people in and to get a look at what we've learned so far. And then at the end of the season, of course, we'll be publishing or posting the data on our website. I'm all excited about that. But the other thing I've really been excited about is the reception we've had from outside of what was our geographic area for sales, which was Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and then when you started, Andrew, maybe Nebraska and Western Iowa. And Rachel told me the other day that we have purchased seed permits to sell seed in 19 states now,
Yeah.
which is incredible. We didn't imagine that at all. We've had a great uh, reception from the people out there to what we're trying to do, and I think that's driving us to be so transparent with what we're doing to bring answers to a lot of their questions. I've had some great fun talking to people and trying to understand what their needs are, what they're looking for, and incorporate that into our plans all the time. We're trying to discover hybrids. What situations will they work in so we can
Right.
position best for our customers, and then pass that information on to you and our other sales staff. So
You and I talked about this before, but you've gotten some good conversations over the past couple of weeks as you've been out and about with farmers. And it's uplifting. It's nice to see guys responding well to what we're doing. That's for sure.
yeah, it's interesting. I do like to deliver the seed as much as I can and time allows because I get to talk directly to the grower of the seed and find out, any, some details of their operation, let's say, and maybe any agronomic discussion they might want to have, and it's really fun to get, right at the base of where it all happens for our company. That's what on our customer's farm, and to hear their concerns. And it's from a company standpoint or a research position, we have to think 10 years out because that's how long it takes to develop new products. And then when I talk to them, I think, okay, what do we got in our pipeline that's going to work for them that could be available within the next year or two? Or how do we adjust our selection pressure in our pipeline or our breeding program to create the product they're going to need 5 years out or 10 years out or next year? And that's kind of what kind of is driving the whole discovery farm is I'm trying to take all the things that I hear when I talk to customers and other researchers for that matter, and try and combine that into our discovery farm. And so the key questions we're trying to answer are, how do I control weeds? What population do I plant? What hybrids are best for these situations? What planting configuration should I use? What how does biology affect, my hybrid choices? All these questions, so that's one thing I failed to mention in our discussion. We're also going to be testing different seed treatments, different biology in
Yep.
these different conditions to keep adding to our data set of understanding what we need to do. And that in our drive to reduce synthetic inputs on our farm, we want to have as close to uh, how do I say, a, a living ecosystem on our farm and not one driven by chemistry as possible, much as possible.
I know for me personally, where that's kind of what's important to me is I get a lot of questions about if guys are looking at it, and guys even that we work with that are in a skip or a 60 is that population, and where do they keep it? Going to someone and saying, hey, if you're doing a skip row, just take the seed out. If you're at 30,000, just take the 10 out. And
Mhm.
they're like, they don't, a lot of them won't do it, or don't think about it a certain way, or okay, then run a couple different tests in terms of what the population is inside those rows. But there are hybrids that are going to respond differently to what those populations are inside the row. And we're going to find out a lot about what that data is showing us to be able to make a much better, more precise recommendation. Because there's
But
hybrids that don't that thrive if they're thinned out a little bit compared to some of the ones that are going to be a heavier population.
yeah, and I mean, we understand why they're saying that because they've been told to increase population, increase yield for their whole farming career. I mean, I was on that wagon train too. We got to keep figuring out how to get more plants and to get more ears to produce more grain at the end of the season. But with the high stress breeding that we've been doing, we found out the plant has a lot more capability than we gave it credit for. And so that's been a cool revelation. And not all of our genetics like the lighter population, but we have some that are outstanding at low population, and those are the ones that we need for this situation. And we're going to keep driving for that, the lower population and allow those hybrids to really flex. And that'll give you more stability over your growing season in a wide range of conditions. I think a lot of dryland farmers, that they know they need the population to get the yields that they want, but they also know they run a risk in every year of the rains turning off. And we want them to be able to plant a lower population where they can be assured of getting something when it turns dry and then excel when the rains show up. I mean, that's why I really like the flex concept. Let the plant do the work.
Right.
And very few modern hybrids allow you to do that today. And that's why we're excited to keep working in this arena, and the skip row testing will actually benefit us for that as well. To know which hybrids we can put into those situations.
With some of the modern hybrids that are there, I always wonder this. I think about it all the time. Is have we, not we, but an industry started to work some of those traits out of the hybrids in their development, and we're guys are getting particular hybrids and putting them into a system that is not allowing that hybrid to actually do what it's supposed to do.
Well, I mean, you get what you select for. And so as an industry, I've been doing this 40 years now, and every year it's been, until we started our own program, but every year as an industry, it's planting more plants per acre to get more yield at the end of the season. We put on more fertilizer. I mean, we all want to grow 600 bushel of corn somehow. And the way we do that is to our current knowledge base is we got to increase the number of plants, increase the number of inputs. And that's great if that's the ultimate goal, but I think our ultimate goal is profitability. And I'd rather see our farmers making $600 an acre rather than 600 bushel an acre.
Right.
And so that's our goal, to figure out how we get there. So and so you have to change your methodologies to achieve those goals. Now, that's not saying our hybrids won't yield. I mean, we talked about industry hybrids. I mean, we're modern hybrids as well, modern genetics.
Absolutely.
Differently, and we've seen them yield every bit as well as what the industry has out there to compare. I mean, that's how we advance them. They have to compete with the best products out there. For me to send you out there, Andrew, to talk to a farmer about planting our products.
Right.
You have to compete. If I don't have confidence in them, I'm not going to send you out there to do that.
Right.
And because you're the face of our company and these communities, and we want you to be looked at as a guy who's helping them rather than hurting them, and sending out good products is definitely going to help them.
Absolutely. Well, it's from my perspective, it's a much easier conversation when you have some really good information and data to back up what you're talking about, and history of these hybrids that are toe to toe with any of the the market genetics that are out there, and in most cases better in terms of what the production can be.
I think I always enjoy the stories where farmers are surprised how well our products have done when they try them out, and that's always exciting, to know that we're on the right track and we can compete with everybody out there, and we come at it from a completely different mindset,
right?
Of how to that same place of high yield on their farm. Yeah, and so anything we do to help them tweak out a few more dollars of earning per acre, we're going to do that, because that only bodes well for our success as well. If the farmer's successful, they're going to remember why, and they'll keep coming back to us. And we want to be that reliable supplier of seed for them.
Yeah, and in most cases at a significantly lower cost per unit than some of the other guys that are out there. So, it depends on where you're at, where your market is. You're getting you can get a premium upfront and one on the backside of it too. So you have a little bit of that the dollar saved upfront on your initial input cost for the seed that you can use to either as if the year is going positively or a certain direction, you can put a little bit more into that crop to get some more out of it, or hold on to it and keep that money in your pocket as opposed to it all going out the door up front at some of these numbers I'm hearing on what guys are paying per unit. It blows my mind. Oh, the yeah, it's going to be a fun year. I'm really excited for the Discovery Farm and to be part of that and monitor it and memorialize all of the information that we're getting. And like you said, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, at least we're going to be really transparent about it and show everybody what we have going on there, which to me speaks volumes. And one is being able to tell somebody what didn't work sometimes is a lot more powerful than telling somebody what did work.
Mhm.
They can help
Yeah.
help someone else avoid a particular issue that they might run into.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's exciting. We're looking forward to it, and we'll be sharing information from both farms, the one in Minnesota and the one in Puerto Rico, and trying to understand what worked across the two extremes from tropical to temperate. So it's exciting. I look forward to a few more conversations like this as we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I know I'll be up there. I'll make a point to be up there for sure when we're planting that that field up there. And as we had a meeting not that long ago where we were laying out some of what was going to be going on there, and you could feel a little bit of the uh, excitement going on as we're talking about what we have going on there. Um, well, that's all I have right now, Ed, for the Discovery Farm. Is there anything else that you think we missed on what we have going on there?
no, I think we covered it pretty well, Andrew. I mean, just stay tuned. We're going to keep bringing information and progress reports as we go. There'll probably be a lot shorter clips
Yep.
on what we see and explain a little bit. Be ready to see some videos of what it looks like in the field, and we'll go from there. And we'll take any questions, comments our viewers may have too. Just
Sure.
send to you, and we'll try and get them answered.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of it will, at certain stages of the year, we'll be able to have a conversation like this, but a lot of what we'll have going on in terms of if people want to see what we're doing during the year, that'll be on, 30, 60, 90-second little clips of what we have going on there that'll be shared across social media onto our website. So those are all going to be great places to go to take a look and follow the progress, and we'll make sure that everything is kind of sectioned off. So if you want to follow anything that's what's going on there, it will be all, under a tab for the Discovery Farm. And that's pretty much it. So Ed, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to to getting out there and taking a look, and then I'll also be up there in 2 weeks from now in Minnesota. But
All right.
I'm excited. We got seed treating and bagging and stuff going out the door right now. It's the season is right around the corner. I'm really excited for what I think can happen this year across everywhere that we were going to have hybrids in the ground, and some of the folks that we're fortunate to work with this year, a little bit spread out in terms of where we're at. I'm really excited. We're going to have corn that's going to be up in Washington State. I think it's going to do really, really well up there. Some great mines that are going to be operating that system up there. Expanding, across different markets. So it's really fun, and there's some great people that are going to be growing our hybrids this year, and I can't wait to start, monitoring what they have going on, and also letting everybody know what's going on in their farms if they're willing to let me broadcast it.
Yeah, no, I look forward to that, and I'd like to thank you and everybody who's watching us, and stay tuned.
Thanks, everybody. We'll keep you up to date, and we'll talk to you again.